Let's give it a look here. It's better. Can you see all right there? The subject I'm going to cover before I do one is basically about the migration, the influx of migrants throughout Europe, and the scam that's being pulled there. And it is a scam, folks. It's blatant as anything when you're not a full agenda. The Middle East crisis, right, which was supposedly all started with the Arab Spring in Libya and Egypt, turned out to all be started by the NGOs, the non-governmental organisations, tied in with the Rockefellers and the Carnegie Foundation and people like, what's his name, George Soros, the rat bastard, ex-prison guard during the Second World War, believes he's Lithuanian, fucking war criminal, worked with the Nazis, and basically what they've done is, over the past few years, they've gone into each country in the Middle East, including the Ukraine and that, by the way, in Europe. They're doing the same there, and causing insurgencies, or what they call revolutions. It's not to deal with revolution. It's not indigenous anyway. It's not spontaneous. It's all being engineered, basically to overthrow the Ukrainian government, and also, especially in the Middle East, it's all about hegemonic control over the Middle East by Israel and the West. And what you're seeing in Syria right now, with illegal, and they are illegal or unlawful, if you want to call them, US and UK and other country strikes. This is why Russia's jumped in, by the way, folks. They're trying to basically play their cards there, right? What they're actually doing with the US airstrikes, and it's all illegal under the Geneva Convention. It's a sovereign state, so Syria, and they're using the pretense that they're going after IS or ISIS or whatever you want to fucking call them, whichever new name they come up with next, some gimmick, which is just an offshoot of Al-Qaeda or Jabhat al-Nusra. This is all are, and basically they're using that as an excuse to go. They're not interested in ISIS. They want rid of Assad. And you can check this out for yourself, because the whole idea of overthrowing Assad is not because he's a monster or a dictator, right? Whether he is or not, that's irrelevant, because these guys are only interested in building the Nabucco pipeline, N-A-B-U-C-C-O, right? And you can check this out for yourself. It's all over the internet. This is the real reason I want to go in there. That's why Saudi and Qatar's involved, right? Saudi Arabia, because they're partners in this oil venture, oil and gas, which is exactly the same reason I want to go in Afghanistan. This was on the drawing board before 9/11. I explained that in the other videos about the gas and oil pipeline they want to cross from the Caspian Sea across the Helmand province, which is where all the fighting is in Afghanistan. So it's all bollocks, right? And the reason they have started this crisis, or escalated the crisis, in Syria and elsewhere in the Middle East, Turkey and Iraq and elsewhere, is because they want this influx of migration, or asylum seekers, right? This is what it's all about, folks, right? It's got now to do, I mean, obviously, asylum laws in most countries are that you're obligated to take a certain quota in of asylum seekers. And because you have to fulfill that obligation, they know that. So therefore they cause a serious crisis in Syria and elsewhere, and basically those people need sanctuary. Well, if that was the case, logically speaking, they would stop at the next port of call. They would go to the next country and claim asylum, but they're not. They're all heading for Europe, and they're all heading for the UK, right? So this is what we're talking about here, folks. The madness, and by the way, it's all been directed, right? There's nothing there accidental about it. They are creating, basically, out of the UK, an island fortress, right? For us, right? They are coming down with all these laws and taking control measures and taking away our freedoms and rights to protect us, supposedly, from these Islamists or these terrorists, and yet at the same time they're allowing the floodgates to open, right, into this country and other countries across Europe. That's why a lot of people now are waking up big style, and the governments as well, certain parties, especially what you call the far right. That could be part of the plan as well, of course, folks. But what you've got to understand here is that they're creating a fortress, an island fortress out of the UK, and yet they can't stop these people coming in over across the channel, right? That's bollocks, right? They could easily send a TA down there, an armed contingency, and send them down there and basically shut the borders altogether. But they don't want to do that, you see. And this is what we're talking about here. They're telling us to give up the rights and the freedoms and more restrictions on society in general, with surveillance and everything else, and yet at the same time they're allowing a massive influx of migrants or asylum seekers, right? Most of them aren't asylum seekers, they're just migrants. And they're coming over here, nobody has a clue whether these guys or whatever are Al-Qaeda or IS, right? So, I mean, they're not really being vetted, right? And even if they could, up to a certain extent, most of them will be what you call sleepers, So this is what we're talking about here, the madness in it, right? Is that they're opening the floodgates, allowing all these migrants in, and it will amount to millions eventually. Already is to a large extent in this country. But then eventually, you know what's going to happen down the road, right? And again, this is all part of the agenda, to get shitting ourselves, basically, and giving up more rights. Right? This is what it's all about, folks. It's got nothing to do with the welfare of the people of those countries. It's got nothing to do with that. This is all part of the big agenda, right? And secondly, and probably most importantly, is this. The EU, or the EU-SSR, right? Because this is what it's all about, folks, right? It's based exactly the same as the old Soviet model, the European Parliament, right? It's unaccountable, it's corrupt, and the whole idea behind the globalist agenda is to create a super state, a federal super state, which is doing the same in America and Asia and Africa. And once they've created those blocks, then they're going to form their world government, right? Now, to do this, if they give people, especially in this country, a referendum tomorrow, we would overwhelmingly vote no. I believe that anyway, against the EU. Because more and more people are becoming wise to its real intentions, right? And so they're going to deny with a referendum, even though Cameron keeps spouting off about 2017 and beyond, right? It's all bullshit, it's just stalling, right? Remember, he's part of the landed gentry, right? He is one of the globalist minions, right? Total puppet, right? So is Tony Blair, but even his wife is related to the Rothschilds, the big banking cartels. They've infiltrated all the royals, all the nobility, and this is what you've got to understand, folks, an ongoing program, continuity of agenda. They will deny us a referendum while basically flooding the country with migrants from all different countries and diluting the population, the Anglo-Saxon population. Now, that isn't me being racist. This is just fact. It's common sense, right? Once you realise the big agenda, this is what it's all about. In fact, it was a UN migration chief, I can't remember his name, United Nations migration chief, actually is quoted, and I've got the article, I'm going to put it in the video, he's actually quoted as saying, we need to dilute the population, the homogeneity of the UK population, right? So that was the plan all along, right? To merge into a federal superstate, whether we like it or not. So I've just covered that part. Basically, and I hope you do go and research it for yourselves, because this is the program, right? This, it's about the destruction of all national sovereignties first it was through trade treaties, international trade treaties. Now they're using the asylum laws, and they will use anything to further their aims. Okay? So I'm going to leave it at that, and I will include a couple of articles in this video just to show that I'm not spouting, right? Okay.